Every year on Christmas, I was always under the tree shaking my presents, 'cause I couldn't wait to unwrap my newest toy. And, I confess, I did a little reading.
A little.
Fine, a lot of reading on Madoka Magica. I knew most of the plot twists and revelations the show had up its sleeve. But you may get more out of it if you go into this one blind. So, spoiler free. Madoka Magica is a pretty good deconstruction of the Mahou Shoujo genre. It has stunning visuals, an interesting and well thought out world,
even if it's built on a load of grade A horse.
The characters can be hit or miss, and it's rather pretentious and occasionally tasteless. But all in all, I recommend Madoka Magica for any anime fan, and I give this one a 4 out of 5. Okay, now I'm gonna spoil the hell out of this anime. So, you know how most magical girl animes have a cute mascot character like Kiro or Luna? Well, Madoka flips the script by making its cute mascot Kyubey the main villain. You see, Kyubey's an alien called an incubator. They never clarify whether this is his species or the organization he's part of, but he's trying to prevent entropy, which, according to Grandfather Nurgle, is the slow expenditure of energy that will eventually render the entire universe a homogeneous mass of lifeless particles at a low temperature. In order to do this, Kyubey farms energy from young girls on Earth. He sows the seed, so to speak, by making a contract with the girl and granting her one wish. Then he rips her soul out, creating a soul gem. Over time, as the magical girl uses her powers, the soul gem becomes tainted, until it violently transforms into a grief seed, and the magical girl is violently transformed into a homicidal witch. At this point, Kyubey will harvest the energy to prevent entropy, and the newly created witch will go on a killing spree until a new magical girl brings her down, and uses the grief seed to purify,
temporarily,
her soul gem. Then the used grief seed will be eaten by Kyubey before a new witch can hatch. Personally, I find Kyubey to be very inconsistent. He tries to spin his actions as basically noble, what with the whole needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few thing. And he's basically saving both humanity and the universe. But when a rampaging super witch threatens all life on Earth, he doesn't seem to care, only stating that he's met his quota.
Very short-sighted, if you ask me.
He also has basically unlimited power. He's immortal, and he can make anything happen as long as a wish is involved. Which raises weird questions, like, could Madoka have wished for entropy to stop? It's also hard to buy his neutral shtick, when he leaves out critical information in contract negotiations. Finally, they kinda cop out on Kyubey being the bad guy, after Madoka rewrites the laws of reality. Next, there's Homura, who I find incredibly frustrating. She gets so close to being just amazing, but she can't stick the landing. Homura is basically the main character of Madoka Magica. If you've read All You Need Is Kill or seen Edge of Tomorrow, you know what Homura's deal is. She's reliving the same month over and over again, using her time manipulation powers, with the goal of saving Madoka from a most horrible fate. As she does this, Homura goes from hapless dweeb to magical bad. In combat, Homura uses a wide variety of military weapons. The admittedly clever explanation is that she doesn't have anything other than time manipulation. But I just don't find a Glock to be very magical.
That's 'cause you've never pulled off a tight shot group in private.
Her fight scenes are darn cool, especially the one against the witch final boss, Walpurgisnacht. And what she goes through to save Madoka is legitimately heroic and impressive. But that's also my problem with her. Homura is obsessed with Madoka, and she's also basically indifferent to the other main characters. She's willing to kill Sayaka, and I don't get it. It's fine if Madoka is her best friend, but how can she feel nothing for Kyoko or Mami? It really undermines her, and it doesn't help that the show seems so hellbent on portraying Homura as too cool for school. It's really hard to pull off the aloof cool thing and not look like a jerk, even if I understand that it's a defense mechanism. My second favorite character, and the one who gets dealt a pretty darn hand, is Sayaka. I really appreciate the purity of her motives. Sai wishes that an injured childhood friend would recover from his injuries. Then, once her brief career in magical girling gets started, all she wants to do is protect people from witches. The problem is, Sai is easily the weakest girl, and after the nature of what Kyubey does to his clients is revealed, Sayaka starts a downward spiral, using way too much magic, and not maintaining her soul gem's purity. Homura only intervenes when Sayaka's condition is bothering her precious Madoka, and Kyoko for all her good intentions.
That and $5 will get you a cup of coffee.
Inadvertently makes Sayaka even worse, until she finally becomes a witch. Now, Sayaka is generally combative and stubborn, but I don't think self-destructive is really appropriate. I mean, she turns into this self-hating time bomb, and I'm not convinced that Madoka couldn't have reached her. Homura always comes off with such phenomenal hostility, no good was ever going to come from that.
Well, you'd think after reliving the same month over and over again, she would have some idea of how to reach the poor little wretch.
The fact is, Sayaka is a plot device, to explain where witches come from, and to further Madoka's development. Next up is Kyoko. I also have mixed feelings about her. She has a bad attitude, not really caring about protecting the world from witches, and she's willing to use her powers to get whatever she wants. Now, in fairness, this is well explained in Kyoko's backstory.
Murder-suicides are notoriously hard on family life.
Of all the characters on Madoka Magica, Kyoko is the one that I really wanted to know more about, as she raises a lot of questions. She seems like she's been hanging around for a while. How long exactly? Has she been knocking around for a year? 3 years? 5 years? Longer? Kyoko also has some unusual physical features, like her sharp eye teeth, that almost look like fangs. Finally, her special abilities aren't terribly well explained. She uses a spear and can create magical barriers, but it still feels like there's more to it. Alright, now let's talk about my favorite character, Mami. She's friggin' awesome. Super nice, she fights to protect the people from the witchy menace, and she's armed with a never-ending supply of flintlock rifles and razor-sharp ribbons. She's there to guide Sayaka and Madoka through the rigors of being a magical girl.
She's also dead frickin' meat.
Yeah. This great character exists solely to get killed off to further Sayaka and Madoka's development.
Don't get too attached to a certain guy. Have a backup, have a backup, have a backup. He might drink some poison wine. That's a spoiler, that's a spoiler, that's a...
Now, she does show up again in alternate timelines and flashbacks, but she's still sadly underdeveloped. Finally, there's Madoka herself. Personality-wise, she's, nice. And she wants to help people?
You seem to be struggling.
Well, there's nothing inherently wrong with exceptionally pure and virtuous characters, like Captain America, Superman, or Goku.
Private?
American Goku. But those guys actually do stuff. Madoka just kinda hangs around until it's time to die for the sake of humanity. Now, don't get me wrong, Madoka's no Mary Sue. She struggles and has a certain amount of character development, but it still feels like her ultimate sacrifice was never really in any doubt. And since magical girls have a short lifespan anyway, the only real questions about Madoka are why is she so darn important, and how big of a wicked witch will she leave behind when her soul gem shatters? But fortunately, we do get satisfactory answers to both of those questions by the end of the series. And for what it's worth, Madoka is likable enough that you don't want to see anything really bad happen to her. Now for the second stringers. There are only a handful of supporting characters that are actually worth talking about. First, there's Kyosuke, who Sayaka has a thing for. Dude dreams of being a classical musician, till his hands get mangled in a car crash.
Sorry, kid. Looks like you're playing drums.
In story terms, he's just a lever to move Sayaka around with. She makes a contract with Kyubey to heal his hands. But you know what? It's okay, because we get a couple of really sweet scenes out of it. He also inadvertently destroys the blue-haired ball of frayed nerves by spending time with another girl. Up next is Madoka's mom. She's a hard-working lush who can dispense momly wisdom even with a blood alcohol level to rival some frat boys. She does comic relief type stuff and occasionally influences Madoka's thinking. Her and Madoka have a good relationship even if they're not your typical mother-daughter fare. Finally, I have to mention Madoka's little brother. He's a toddler and preposterously adorable.
You're only saying that because you can't smell him, Private.
It's also really nice that he's one of only 2 people to retain memories of Madoka after things go all 2001 Evangelion in the final episode. I would describe Madoka Magica as the home run queen of Mahou Shoujo anime, because when it hits it out of the park. But when it misses, it's a strikeout. Let's start with the best things about Madoka. First off, the visuals in this anime are spectacular. The environments are just gorgeous. Nothing is there just to be there. Whether it's a factory, a hospital, or a school, everything is lovingly detailed. And that creates a world that's like an exaggerated version of reality. It's kind of like what Tim Burton does, but with a very different style. And that's before the girls encounter the witches. That's when things go absolutely bad. The witches and the labyrinth worlds they inhabit are like nothing I've seen in an anime. They tend to have this strange scrapbook style, and they're crawling with arts and crafts monstrosities.
It's as if Mr. Rogers' neighborhood was in Silent Hill.
And nothing is stranger than the witches themselves. No two are alike, and a witch fight is always exciting. Unfortunately, the girls themselves aren't as well designed. Mami is by far the best. Her steampunk battle costume and flintlock rifles are beautiful. And they look, magical. A close second is Homura. If the goal was to create a cool character, Homura succeeds with flying colors. Sleek and simple, absolutely nothing feels unnecessary. The problem is her use of modern weapons. Now, I know both plot-wise why she uses the Call of Duty arsenal, and that her magic makes her as skilled with an M249 saw as any protein shake-pounding 80s action hero, but I still get cognitive whiplash when I see a girl that small waving around a gun that big. It's kind of flow-breaking, Next, Kyoko. She's okay. Her costume is bordering on too complex, though. Layers are nice and everything, but it's getting just a little bit ridiculous. But I will say her hair is pretty bad. Next up, Sayaka. She's just a hot mess. The cape is the best thing about her battle costume, but the chest piece and top is just not well designed. Some of her powers have a musical theme, which makes sense considering her wish, but she also gets an unlimited number of sabers that she can just pull out of thin air. Okay, I don't see the connection. Finally, Madoka herself. Honestly, she looks like just the most stereotypical magical girl imaginable. Now, I know that's all part of the misdirection, but still, it's just so
pink.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just I feel like it could have been a stereotypical Mahou Shoujo battle costume and still looked cool. Alright, now for the action scenes. The fights in Madoka have a range of qualities, but none of them are actually bad. Any big throwdown with a witch is always a treat to see, but there are fights between magical girls as well. The battle between Sayaka and Kyoko, which gave me a Leonardo versus Raphael vibe for some reason, was well done. I think the choice of having the girls fight with actual weapons was a good one. It means they focus more on well-choreographed fights, rather than the nondescript blasts of glitter that tend to turn up a lot in this sort of thing. Finally, I need to mention the final boss fight between Homura and Walpurgisnacht. It's very impressive. The raven-haired warrior goes to extreme lengths to down the Witch Queen. But it's also really unsatisfying. Homura does everything you can think of, and Walpurgisnacht is just like, nope. And that's just not fair. Homura has been constantly preparing for this fight, and in the end,
it all adds up to a big steaming load of jack.
The music in Madoka is also fantastic. The best song by far is the end/battle theme. It has a great moody, intense vibe that really works with the darker themes of the show. Mami's theme is also great, with a strong, triumphant sound that really works for Sailor Gunsmoke here. I'm also pretty fond of Sayaka's theme. The classical violins and stuff fit with her thematically. I'm much less fond of the opening song and the montage that goes with it. I get using it in the beginning to fake everyone out, but by the time they get to the end of the show with the whole world coming to an end, they still run the cotton candy opening. Seriously, guys? Alright, now let's talk about the bad parts of Madoka. The biggest is related to the show's ending. You see, as Homura travels back in time over and over again to save Madoka, it increases her level of importance and latent magical girl potential, to the point when Madoka finally becomes a wicked witch, she threatens all life on Earth. But here's the thing, she's still really powerful to start with. Both Mami and Homura ultimately fail to kill Walpurgisnacht, but Madoka downs her in the first timeline, and she only gets more and more powerful from there. Beyond the weird metaphysical blather, they never really get into why one girl is better than another. Like I said, Sayaka is very weak, but her wish to heal an injured friend was perfectly reasonable, and I don't buy that she did it for his gratitude. If that's what she wanted, all she had to do was say,
I wish Kyosuke and I will fall in love and live happily together.
The wish she made was for his happiness, not hers. Mami's wish was to save her own life, and Kyoko wished to help her father. All of these things are reasonable to want, yet they led to wildly different power levels. Mami's death also kinda bugs me. They may not look it, but magical girls are as tough as Spartans.
Don't go there, Private.
With the ability to heal magically. Now, it's possible that Charlotte, the witch that killed Mami, just did more damage than she could heal. Or Mami's soul gem could have broken, which would have also killed her. But both of those explanations just don't sit right. Also, Charlotte is killed moments later by Homura. But the thing is, Homura isn't necessarily stronger than Mami. The two face off in one of the movies, and it's pretty even. I also find Madoka Magica a bit pretentious. First off, there's this weird title card featuring Lord Humongous.
Say what?
Apparently, it symbolizes the girls fighting over a limited resource, i.e. the grief seeds. But at no point does any girl go all twitchy-witchy because she didn't have enough grief seeds. Madoka Magica can also be obnoxiously self-aware. Occasionally, they'll make a reference to some anime trope. Now, most of the time, that's played for laughs, but the very term magical girl refers to the genre itself, and that's just kind of immersion-breaking, to hear them say it several times an episode. Finally, there are a couple of scenes in the last episode that I honestly find to be sorta tasteless. The premise of Madoka Magica's backstory is that magical girls have existed throughout the ages, and their wishes have shaped human history. And of course, they drop a couple of historic names. One I'm sure of, the other one is just implied. So apparently, Joan of Arc was a magical girl. Now, although Joan was a real person who really died, that was a long time ago. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't find the Maid of Orleans beating up witches with a magic broadsword or something while she saved France to be awesome in kind of an Abe Lincoln vampire hunter sort of way. But they also imply that Anne Frank was a magical girl. It's just my opinion, but that gets awfully close to the good taste line. Okay, now it's time to break down the good and the bad in Madoka Magica. On the good side, Madoka is visually stunning, with a cleverer than average story, cool action scenes, great music, and a distinctive cast. On the other hand, Madoka treats its characters just like Game of Thrones.
Don't get too attached to a certain guy. Have a backup, have a backup, have a backup. He might drink some poison wine. That's a spoiler, that's a spoiler, that's a spoiler.
Killing off characters in fairly brutal ways just to advance the arcs of others. The plot tries to fuse sci-fi and fantasy together, a la BioShock Infinite, and they both end up in kind of the same confusing place by the end. There's always a lighthouse, there's always a girl, and somehow she turns into a concept. The internal logic of the show isn't always consistent, and the whole thing is maybe just a bit pretentious. But Madoka Magica is still very enjoyable, and definitely worth seeing for any anime fan. So I give it a 4 out of 5. And if you're interested in more reviews of anime, movies, TV shows, comic books, or video games, check out my channel on YouTube at StupidPrivate913, or find my Facebook and DeviantArt pages for video updates and more.
Hey kids, today's show is brought to you by the letter 4 and the number potato! I'm a stupid private.